You hover over the message. Answer now. Don't answer. If you answer, you'll owe something. If you don't, you'll look cold. You're the empath in most rooms, and your circle is small because your sensitivity is porous. You pick up tone, tension, and unspoken need so quickly that casual connection can feel like standing outside in the rain without a coat. Over time, your psyche hires a gatekeeper, an inner figure whose job is simple: limit access. Not because you think you're better than people, but because you learned what it costs when everyone can walk in. The pattern starts quietly, in ordinary weeks. You meet someone and the conversation goes deep too fast. They tell you something heavy, and you feel it land in your body as if it's yours to carry. They call you easy to talk to. You smile. And by the third interaction, their pain arrives before their greeting, and your chest tightens with the knowledge that you'll be asked to hold the weight again. Then you do what you've learned to do. You become polite fog. You reply later. You keep it short. You choose silence over explanation. From the outside, it reads like distance. Inside, it's triage. This is the spiral: connection, absorption, fatigue, withdrawal, guilt, repeat. A new friend feels promising. Your antennas go up. You notice everything: the slight wobble in their confidence, the way they laugh a half-second late, the question they're really asking without words. Your empathy is fast. Too fast. And the gatekeeper watches you lean forward, watches you start becoming a container, and gently pulls you back. You can feel the gatekeeper in your body. It shows up as a pause before you respond, a tightening behind your ribs, a reluctance that makes you stare at the screen as if it's a door you're not sure you want to open. You tell yourself you're busy, you're tired, you're protecting your peace. All true. But underneath is another truth: you remember being used up. You've had friendships where you became the emotional translator. The one who could handle the meltdown, the crisis, the long voice note. You've watched people leave lighter while you went home heavy. You didn't call it unfair because you understood them. You kept understanding until understanding became self-erasure. And then the resentment began, quiet, embarrassing, real. Not the kind that wants revenge. The kind that whispers, "Of course they like me. I'm useful." The kind that makes you flinch when someone says, "Can I vent?" because you can already feel your evening dissolving into their storm. You hate yourself for the flinch. You keep smiling anyway. The gatekeeper takes notes. There's a younger part involved too. The child who absorbs learned early that reading the room was safer than being surprised by it. If moods were unpredictable, if comfort was scarce, then attention became survival. You learned to catch the sigh before the argument, the tension before the explosion, the shift before the withdrawal. That child is still in you. That child still thinks, "If I can sense it, I can prevent it." So when you're with people, you don't just hang out. You track. You adjust. You monitor the temperature. You try to keep the room smooth. It is empathy. And it's exhausting. That's why you can leave a dinner and feel bruised. Nothing happened. But your inner skin was rubbed raw by other people's unspoken need. And your gatekeeper formed in response to that. It doesn't hate people. It hates being entered without consent. It hates the moment when someone's sadness quietly becomes your responsibility. Once the gatekeeper takes the job seriously, you start choosing fewer doors. You stop saying yes automatically. You stop keeping friendships that only exist when someone needs you. You become selective. People call it guardedness. But guardedness is sometimes just clarity after too much leaking. If you recognize yourself here, name one place where your empathy drains you most: texts, work friends, family, dating, social events. Leave it in the comments. Not as a confession. As a map. The trap is thinking you need to become less sensitive. That only turns you harsh with yourself. The shift is learning the difference between feeling and absorbing, perception versus ownership. You can sense a storm without moving it into your chest. That sounds simple until you try it. Because your inner world doesn't trust the idea that you can care without carrying. So the gatekeeper steps in again and again, until your life becomes quiet enough to breathe. Fewer friends. Fewer gatherings. Relief. And then, later, the ache. Why do I feel lonely if this is what I needed? Because the sensitive one in you still wants warmth. It just doesn't want to be harvested. This is where the inner negotiation begins. Not a new personality. A new agreement inside your house. Picture your inner life as a home with a front door and a hallway. For years, the door was open because you were trained to be welcoming. People wandered in with heavy bags and left them by your couch. You helped them unpack. You cleaned up afterward. Then you wondered why you were always tired. The gatekeeper is the one who finally walks to the door and puts a hand on the lock. It doesn't slam it. It asks a question: who is this, and what do they want? Not as paranoia. As discernment. Because there are people who come to sit with you, and people who come to lean on you. There are people who can hold your tenderness, and people who treat it like free medicine. The gatekeeper isn't trying to make you isolated. It's trying to keep your empathy from becoming a public utility. So you begin practicing something that feels unfamiliar: a filter. A filter is not a wall. It's a way of staying open without being poured into. It's the ability to say yes slowly, and no cleanly. It's the ability to let someone's emotion be theirs, even while you care. You feel the difference in small moments. Someone starts venting and you notice your body leaning forward to rescue them. You pause. One breath. You let the gatekeeper stand beside you. You listen without solving. You respond without taking ownership. You keep your feet under you. Sometimes the filter looks like a sentence you've been afraid to say: I can't hold this right now. Short. Kind. Final. Sometimes it looks like asking, do you want advice, or do you just want to be heard? That question changes the dynamic. It turns your empathy from a reflex into a choice. Some people will fade when you stop being an endless container. That will sting. It will also clarify what the relationship was built on. And the shadow of resentment softens when the filter exists. Because resentment was never your personality. It was your boundary trying to be born. When you stop leaking, you stop keeping score. Your circle may still be small. That might be your nature. But the smallness changes texture. It becomes deliberate rather than defensive. You stop collecting connections and start choosing them. Your antennas don't feel like a curse when they're paired with a lock you control. You can notice pain without drowning in it. You can be tender without being taken. There's still a quiet grief here. You may grieve the friendships you wanted but couldn't sustain. You may grieve how often your best quality became your burden. You may grieve the version of you who believed being good meant being endlessly available. Let that grief exist. Briefly. Honestly. It's evening. You step inside. You take off your shoes at the door. The hallway is quiet. Somewhere, a refrigerator clicks and settles. You walk to the front door and turn the lock once, not to shut people out, but to remind your body that entry is by invitation. In that locked, simple quiet, your empathy doesn't disappear. It finally has a home.